Okay, so apparently episode 9 came out right after I finished my episode 8 review, and so before I get into the episode 8 review or episode 9 review, I'm going to let you all know something real quick. The first part of this video is actually just going to be me talking about episode 8. That's pretty much what I'm going to be, because I watched episode 8, did my review because I was waiting for episode 9. It wasn't out, so I just did an episode 8 review. As soon as I finished it, I saw that this episode was up on Crunchyroll, so I was like, fuck it, I'll review it. And so, instead of just doing an entirely different episode 8 review, I'm just going to be putting these two reviews together, and so just putting this little bit of a summary at the beginning for I can let you all know. So the first part, I did not know of any of the events in episode 9. So anyways, let's begin. You're going to have a flashback to episode 8, and then you'll have a flash forward to episode 9. So here we go. So let's dive in deep for episode 8, I guess. This makes it a lot easier. I can focus on the events of episode 8. We get introduced to a new parasite called Hide. And from this episode, we find out that this parasite called Hide wants to coexist with humans. Now, from the ending conclusion of this episode, it makes me think a lot differently. This dude is definitely lying. He's just straight out lying, I think, because at the end, you see this girl that he changed his face, and when he grabbed this girl, it's like, hey, all that, you know, he's just talking to this girl randomly on the street. Next scene we see right at the end before the credits happen, we see him just gutting a girl, and it looks like he's gutting her or whatever. As we can see, like, she's being lifted off the ground, you see her feet not touching the ground, so clearly, he's doing something very bad to her. So, clearly, that's not coexistence. That's not coexistence, because he said in his recent memory, he hasn't harmed a human. So, yeah, he's just a straight-up liar, and he has other objectives that he wants to do to Izumi. So, with that overall aspect, that introduces the conflict, I'm guessing, of this upcoming arc of Parasite. Yeah, to where Tamiya actually tells this dude called Hide to hunt down Izumi and his parasite and kind of probably take him out, pretty much. So, with that overall aspect, this episode is really good. It's a slow, gradual build-up to the conclusion of the episode, and honestly, I'm quite upset that we don't have the other episode out already, because I felt like these two episodes were probably meant to actually watch back-to-back to get the full grasp of what's going on, but sadly, it's not out yet. But, one thing I will say, this episode took a lot of emphasis on Izumi's personality change. That's exactly what this episode did. It straight out made sure we focused and keyed in on the personality change of Izumi. Like, I noticed it multiple times in this episode, which was just crazy. Like, the entire dog scene. That scene right there was incredibly shocking, even for me. Even for me, when I saw that scene in this episode, I'm like, holy shit. When I saw him throw the dog in the trash, I'm like, I honestly was like, oh my god, that's fucked up. I really thought that. And to see how he did that, it just shows you how far his personality has changed from the very beginning, from the first episode. This episode shows us how different he really is. And as I stated in my theories last week and talking about the maybe Migi might disappear eventually, you can clearly see that Migi's cells going all in his body is affecting Izumi. He's acting completely different. He's a lot more cold. He's less nervous. He's not a coward. He's able to have acute senses. For instance, he can hear well. He can freaking run fast. He can see and hear. It's just fucking ridiculous, his senses at the moment. And so, he's clearly undergone some form of evolution. He has. He's gone under a lot of evolution, or he is very superior to a regular, normal human. Because it's demonstrated in this episode with that school bully that a couple episodes back, like 4 episodes ago, beat the shit out of Izumi like he was like a ragdoll. Izumi was. And with this episode, Izumi was just like this, like the fucking Matrix. He was like, yeah, you're too slow, man, you're too slow. That's pretty much how Izumi was in this episode, fighting that guy. He didn't even fight, technically. He just blocked, grabbed his fucking shoe, he fell backwards, and he was just dodging. He didn't even land a punch. I mean, imagine how hard that would have hurt the dude, like how bad it would have hurt if Izumi would have hit him in the face. Because in this episode, we see one of the parasites, actually, the Hide dude. He comes to the school and introduces himself to Izumi, and you have this random dude, this random schoolmate just come down, he's like that, what are you doing here? And he's like, boom, right to the dude's face, and you just see his, like, face get crushed, and he hits the wall and all that. That looked brutal. Oh my god, that is just straight out fucking brutal. I should have keyed in on that scene, actually, about what he said. He actually contradicted himself with that scene. Like, what he says in the episode, he states that he doesn't want to hurt humans. He hasn't hurt any humans in recent memory. That's what he said in that scene, but right before he said that, he actually hit the dude in the face. So I should have keyed in right there that there's something very off about this guy, but I mean, it doesn't matter. It's still, the point of it is that it's just, wow, the strength of him, the way he did that dude, just bitch slapped him barely. I bet Izumi can actually probably do the exact same thing if he wanted to, since he's got increased strength pretty much. Another thing, too, I do want to mention is that this episode, like I said, it mainly keys us in on Izumi's, like, psychological development, like what his psyche is going through at the moment. And to see how he actually did not care about his mother or father, technically, in this episode, really took me aback, too. Once again, this series continues to shock me because Izumi is slowly getting colder and colder by the episode. Like, a couple episodes back, he would have cried and teared up if he would have saw his dad in that state. He would have. And with this episode, we find out Izumi cannot show emotions, pretty much. Like, he can't cry. He cannot cry anymore, which is very depressing. And he actually does not feel like he's officially human anymore. He feels like he lost some form of his humanity. And to see this aspect, it's very sad, and it just shows you how far he's come and how much Migi is really changing him. And to see how he, like, doesn't really care that his dad is very depressed. Like, the way he acted with the situation was a very clear and level head. I will give Izumi props to that. But the way he acted with the situation wasn't very thoughtful when it comes to the emotional level of his father. The way he says, like, when you go under these situations when a mother dies, you should get a housemaid to care for you. And I'm like, holy shit, that is rude. That is straight out rude. Like, that is outright fucking rude. And to see Izumi even say that about his own mother and father, I was like... So, yeah, clearly it just shows that he may have done the right decision of saying something like that, like, in a logical level, but in a psychological level with emotions and stuff with someone very broken, and especially drinking like his father's doing, it was a very rude thing to say, and it was definitely cold-hearted, and that's not something you should probably say to someone. So, we can clearly see how Izumi is being affected by Migi in this episode. Just obvious changes. Like, you can't deny the obvious changes. And then the way he actually got rage in his, like, head. Like, when he was thinking about how the parasites really are, and he was just staring out the window, he's like, I'll kill them all, expose them all. And then he turns around and looks at Murano, and you see his face, like, his rape face is on. And I'm like, oh my god, his face was rape face. The way he gave Murano that look, she just ran off. She's like, okay, I'm done. That's pretty much what she did in this episode. Like, oh my god. Actually, Izumi kept making it worse and worse in this episode with Murano. Like, every time he would try to either ask for forgiveness or he would try to make it up, something bad would go on. For instance, like, the overall situation would not turn out well, and it would actually make the overall situation worse between Murano and Izumi. So, yeah, this is not good. It's not really good what is going on. Most likely, the way I see it going, maybe Izumi is going to have to get together with Kana. Because Murano is probably going to fall out of love with Izumi if he continues to be like this. And also, I noticed that foreshadowing, Parasite. I obviously noticed that foreshadowing. And I want a theory craft on this. That foreshadowing with the senses. For instance, the telepathy of Kana. And technically, Murano's kind of the same way. Kana says she can sense people. Like, she senses Izumi. We know this. She can sense parasites. But, with this episode, she senses this dude, Hide, this parasite, walk around the corner. And she says, oh, Izumi! Right before he gets around the corner, and she thinks it's, Izumi. Parasite keyed in on this. He's like, he's like strange, like very, very fucking strange. He was about to drag her off, and most likely she was going to end up like how that girl was at the end of this episode. So, this, overall, the way this happened, the way Izumi stated, like, you need to stay away from people like this. If you sense it, you need to get away and all that. That is foreshadowing. That is a death flag. Maybe not on Kana herself, but it could be a death flag on Murano. So I really, really hope that is not a death flag as I think it is, because that's the way it's setting up. Since this is a seinen, it does seem like a death flag. It straight up does seem like a death flag. So we'll have to see where that goes. Overall, the episode is a very interesting episode. Like I said, it's a build-up episode, a straight-up build-up episode for the events, and I wish I had the other episode to have my conclusive thoughts on this episode, but I don't at the moment. But I guess I'll have to watch it later today. Overall, tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I mean, how did you feel about this week's episode of Parasite? Are you waiting as long as I am for the next episode of Parasite, episode 9? Are you hyped up? I mean, let me know in the comments below. Why would I be left on a cliffhanger like that? Parasite episode 9. You're killing me, Madhouse! You're killing me! You're fucking killing me! You're killing me! Really, really, you're killing me! That cliffhanger. That fucking cliffhanger. That cliffhanger is worse than the fucking Izumi getting stabbed through the heart scene, because I knew he would kind of live. But this cliffhanger, Why do you do this to me, Madhouse? I don't appreciate this cliffhanger you just gave me. I don't appreciate it at all. I really don't. Because the shit was getting good. It was getting really good. Yeah. I was getting so into the episode. I was so into the episode. I'm like, oh my god, this is getting good, dude. Like, oh my god, Hide's about to kill Yuko. And I'm like, oh my god, is he really gonna do it? Like, you see his face change. He's transforming all that in the middle of school. He's about to kill her. And then all of a sudden, the freaking episode ends, and I'm like... Am I the only one that feels like this? I felt like the overall aspect of having 2 episodes a day just made the cliffhanger a whole lot worse. It definitely made it a whole lot worse. Actually, to be honest with you, the cliffhanger from episode 8 would have been a lot better than leaving me on this fucking cliffhanger. This cliffhanger is awful. Oh my god, that cliffhanger. Okay, so... This episode, I just want to tell you right now, okay? This episode of Parasite, episode 9, I'm not going to really talk much about the episode 8 events, but I will kind of get into it, but not as much. Episode 9, Hide. Damn. As I said in my episode 8 review, I said this dude is very suspicious and most likely is going to be killing some people, because I should have keyed in on that. Well... With this, it's obvious. It's fucking obvious. He's definitely a mindless killer, especially with this episode. If you look closely, you can easily tell he's about to kill freaking Yuko in this. I want to be just straight out honest. Yuko was fucking stupid. Like, oh my god, she is stupid. Like, who in the right mind, even me or any of you right now, who in their right mind, after seeing someone have a baseball to the head, crunch in their fucking skull like a ball shape, and then fix it, and then see someone change their face in front of you, would think it would be smart to, get contact with this person, and talk with this person that supposedly kills people, with the evidence that your brother actually proved. She deserves to die. I want to be just straight on honest. It's fucked up, yes, but she deserves to die. She was stupid. She should not be going to try to talk to fucking Hide, this parasite dude, when she saw logical evidence that this dude was different and a monster. No, she was stupid. That's stupid. She's gonna die. She's gonna fucking die from her own stupidity. That's exactly what it's gonna be. I mean, I would never, ever try to get in contact with a creature I saw freaking have its head crunched in and fix it with a freaking baseball, and then see it to where the freaking face changes. There's no way in fuck I would try to contact that creature up close and 5 feet away from me. No way! Especially talking about, oh, I know what you are. I expected him to gut her when she was in the middle of that sentence. I expected that, but it didn't happen. But I expected him to just gut her when she was turned around, looking at the table. So, yeah. Okay, so, this episode. One thing I will say, real quick, is that this episode, once again, expands on what I was talking about in my episode 8 review. The first part of this video, I talked about how Izumi is getting less and less attached to Murano. For instance, Murano is falling away from him. With this episode, it shows that they're getting further and further apart. They're splitting up, and you can see clearly how Murano is starting to think Izumi is not even the same person. Like, it's really interesting how this episode plays out, episode 9, because at the beginning of the episode, we get an actual flashback to how Murano and Izumi first met. How they first met when they were in school, and you see how Murano and Izumi have a little bit of a discussion. They were talking, and like Murano's like, oh, are you not Izumi? Are you not Izumi? And he's like, oh yes, I'm Izumi and all that. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, and you know, they got along from that day forward. Well, I found a lot of irony in this. Like, it just shows you how much is different with the circumstances, like how the dialogue, the final ending conversation of this episode with Murano and Izumi, you see it to how she says, oh, I must have gotten the wrong person, for instance, talking about Izumi. So, that overall dialogue, so much irony in the first part and the last part of the conversation of this episode. Just, oh my god, that connection right there. Now, it's not just that, okay? This episode, once again, it just shows you how logical Izumi is. Like, he is really, really thinking hard, and he's doing things that seem logical as a person, but I mean, at some outsider perspectives, it looks very cold and harsh, but Izumi is clearly just thinking logical of the situation, and it makes him come off as a different person. And you gotta love it in this episode where Migi tries to actually comfort Izumi in the shower. He's like, oh, I'm trying to make you feel better and all that, and he's like, I'm actually quite shocked. I'm quite shocked Migi is trying to comfort Izumi. It clearly shows Migi's also changing as a person, too, because of them being shared, like, the same bloodstream and all that, and the cells going through the body. Clearly, their emotions, both of them are changing. Migi's becoming more human, and Izumi is becoming more Parasite, pretty much. So, I like that aspect. I really, really love this fucking episode. Oh my god, this episode was damn good. Oh my god. One thing I will say, though, about this episode is that the music, oh my god, the music, the build-up, the ending score, like the final scene, that music, man, it got to me. I was like, damn it, it's going good, and you give me a cliffhanger. Oh, I hate that shit. I hate that shit so much, man. I really, really do. The music was getting top. I was loving it. Animation was awesome. And then all of a sudden, the episode ends, and I just, like, you gotta be kidding me, man. I was like, why would you do this to me? It's like, why? Another thing, too, I want to talk about. Pretty much, Tamiya, we get to see her in this episode, episode 9 of Parasite, and we see how she has this conversation with some big shot Parasite that seems like to be in a very powerful position, and this big shot Parasite says, like, I'm guessing their purpose of existence, like, what are they trying to do for their purpose of existence? They're trying to figure out what their purpose is to be here, why were they born, and stuff like that. That is what Tamiya is actually asking, and you have it to where this other Parasite, this big shot Parasite, states to Tamiya, like, our existence is to eradicate humanity off the face of the earth. They are a toxin to Earth. So, we have seen this once before. This has been used a lot in different type of series, but it's very interesting getting to see the Parasite's perspective. That's the Parasite's perspective on humans. For instance, you know, they're there to eradicate the humans. And when you have it to where Tamiya actually states something very interesting in this episode, and it actually goes along with my earlier theories a long time ago in the series. I talked about how maybe Tamiya might get motherly instincts to the child. Since she has the child inside of her, she might get motherly instincts, she might change. And with this, you clearly see how she's like, oh, I guess I must be neutering a toxin inside of me. Since, you know, they were talking about toxins, how humanity is a toxin to Earth. Well, she says, I must be neutering a toxin inside of me. So clearly it shows you that she kind of cares for this child a little bit. She actually acted like her overall body language and the way she acted with her speech in this episode kind of reminded me like she cared for the child that's inside of her. So we'll have to see where that goes. Another thing that was really interesting about this episode is the factor that it seems like the FBI or some, well, like, secret organization knows about the parasites. They're keying in on these parasites and they're trying to hunt them down. You have these entire organizations trying to find these parasites, and supposedly, for what one of these investigators said in this episode, there's about 1,000 savage beasts in Japan. So that's pretty interesting to find out. So there's only like 1,000 parasites, in which I guess that's pretty crazy, but they're trying to hunt them all down, and we find out about this overall aspect in this episode. So this can lead to problems later on down the road with Izumi, because, I mean, his father was contacted by the FBI as someone that, you know, is talking about the parasites, reveals the identity of the parasites, tells him that the mother is dead like his wife is dead. So, yeah, this progression right here is probably going to be very important. This overall aspect being introduced is probably going to be something very, very major in the future. And it's not just that, either. We find out that there's this dude, like, this very good, like, writer or drawer or whatever. He actually could draw pictures. Like, he drew a parasite, the parasite that actually killed Izumi's mother. He drew a picture of that and showed it to the father. He's like, yeah, that's exactly what it was. So we got a very skilled drawer also in this episode. There's something I failed to mention in my episode 8 review. It seems like Hide is starting to key in on Migi's weakness. And it's actually a very vital weakness. Like, it's a very massive flaw. Because we do know that parasites can sense each other. We do know certain humans can sense each other and stuff like that. Well, with this episode, you have to where Hide tries to send some form of malicious intent to Izumi, and he doesn't even get affected because we do know that Migi is asleep. So parasites can easily tell that Izumi's hand is asleep. Migi is asleep, for instance, because it pulls off a weaker signal. So, very strange. Overall, very good episode of Parasite. I am very hyped up for episode 10 of Parasite next week. I really, really need the next episode because this episode was fucking greatness. Oh my god. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I love y'all so much. Please be safe. Chibi out.